Hey everybody, this is Chris from Sorcerer. You're watching CMS TV. Metal.
Presents, and I, of course, am Chris Akin, and it is time to get heavy, folks. This album will kick you in the nuts. It is a vicious record. It is called TERRASITE. It is the band Cattle Decapitation, one of my favorites. And on to talk all about it is the guitarist of the band, Mr. Josh Elmore. Josh, how are you, man?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, dude. Well, Josh, I'm going to tell you right up the start. Maybe a month ago, I guess it was, I was on the TV show singing the praises of the new Chelsea Grin album, Suffer in Heaven. I just couldn't stop saying, this is going to be album of the year. This is going to be album of the year. I know it's early, but it's album of the year. Then comes your record, and I'm like, okay, within a month, I have to eat my words because this is the album of the year now, replacing that. This album is so good. It's what you guys do, but with a lot of differences to it. Like it's the first really shift, I think, that I've ever heard in your music. So let's kind of start there, man. Tell us a little bit about TERRASITE. It comes, a few years now after Death Atlas. What changed, or obviously the pandemic hits.
Yeah.
But what was it that changed with you guys to write something that has so many twists and turns from the previous work?
I think, when we went in to start talking about writing for this record, which was, like I said, Death Atlas came out. It was at the end of 2019, pandemic hit, and then we were basically like everyone else shut down to where we were like making these, sort of guesses like, oh, we'll be back on the road, what, July, August 2020? And we all know how that turned out. So around June, we decided like, well, we just put out a record not too long ago, but who knows how long this is going to last and all these other factors. So let's start kind of writing casually at that point. But it got, of course, busier as we went on. So we were all discussing like, okay, what, do we want to do anything differently, or, what's some stuff we'd like to emphasize this time or whatever. And Dave McGraw, our drummer, had mentioned, he said, I want to spend a little more time. Like everyone knows we can play just ripping fast. That's not something, not that we're trying to prove ourselves with that, but it's just like, that's a, a known part of our, toolkit, I guess you could say.
Sure.
So his suggestion was that I want to get a lot more into just more conventional heaviness and groove oriented parts and stuff where he could really stretch with his fills and, doing a lot of, maybe some polyrhythmic stuff on his end and just have space. Travis suggested, like as far as the album itself is concerned, not song by song, he was saying, let's just kind of make this, here's, X and whatever amount of songs it would end up being, which was 10, but still like X amount of songs, let's just have song. Let's not have a huge intro here. Let's not have bumpers or any sort of ambient things in between. It's just, here's the songs. And then on my end, my sort of suggestion was I really wanted to explore more of the atmospheric guitar parts that I was, I've been doing, this wasn't a new thing, on Death Atlas. I've been doing it before and kind of built up Death Atlas where I was able to do more because with that record, we had another guitar player. So it wasn't just, we could be a counterpoint to things.
Sure. So
with TERRASITE, I really wanted to bring that, not necessarily to the forefront, but just have a lot more of a presence of it and, just support the songs and support the, these sort of fundamental riffs that were part of each individual song. So we all kind of, I don't want to say like we had to shake on it and agree, but that was just kind of thinking, okay, we're going to try this. And then as we got deeper into the songwriting, I was able to, incorporate, various effects and have a lot of layering where, there was guitar that almost, that was like on the recording is like bowed. Like I was using an E-bow on a lot of parts to where it gives it almost I don't want to say orchestral, that's a bit much, but just like multiple layers to where there's like this depth to it and richness. And then I used some effects that had like a human, I don't say human voice, but like a sort of choir effect, not a chorus, like guitar chorus is used, but like a choir effect, with lots of delay on it and reverb. So it has this almost like Hall Legion sort of sound to it. So on my end, that's one of the things I contributed. And then I think just in general, the songs, there was a little more, I don't say like a conscientious emphasis, but it was just like a little more grandiosity to them. To where it wasn't like we started some of that on Death Atlas. I mean, we've had that for the past several records, but I mean, really on this TERRASITE, it was a lot more realized, to where you have these sort of big open sections, where, you can see almost like a sort of soundtrack quality to it, or like, a sort of, film score, sort of thing. And that's something that I like, whether we were conscious of it or not, I think, had sort of seeped into our, our writing. So I think this is, maybe the beginning of exploring that. This is the tip of the iceberg, or it's like, okay, this is now another tool. Like I said, mentioned the speed earlier. We can bring this in when we want, and hopefully just, enhance and bolster just the fundamental riffs and parts of the songs that we'll be writing.
Sure. Do you think if you hadn't had the pandemic time, that this would have been a very different record? Because if there wasn't the pandemic time, you would have done what you guys do, which is release the record, tour for a year, get right back to it. Not as much time to tinker with the sound a little bit. So I'm always thinking now that bands, everybody that's putting things out it's really interesting at this point in time. So many bands have kind of a different wrinkle or a different flavor to what they've done because of that extra time that you almost never had before.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, anytime in the past where we've had, like, very rarely do we have a ton of time, but in the past, I think the most notable, example of that was after, even though it was only 2 years, after To Serve Man to Humanure, the touring we did To Serve Man wasn't like super, super extensive. We did like maybe like 2 US tours, and that, we didn't go to Europe on that record, maybe a little dip into Mexico. That's it. So we were pretty much like, okay, we've done this, let's get writing. So for Humanure, we had a ton of time. So it was just like, with that, I mean, granted, we were, earlier stages of our, kind of writing capabilities or whatever, different musicians then basically, compared to now. But that one almost like we had too much time, because we kind of went back and said, well, let's just do more Guitar Truck. Let's do more of this. And so it ended up being dense, but in a way that wasn't like, as edited as we could have made it,
Sure.
But with more recent times and with the pandemic, I think like we had more time, but at the same time, like our individual sort of, personal circumstances, I guess you could say, kind of didn't allow for, like, it wasn't like we were in the practice room 3 or 4 days a week writing new songs, and over this massively larger amount of time. 3 out of the 5 of us don't live in San Diego. Okay. So there was, a bit of commuting. We ended up, Dave and I arranged it once a month. We would meet up and just, 3 or 4 days, just hit it all day those days, over the course of maybe a little over a year, or maybe, 14 months or 15 months. And that's how the album was written. We'd send stuff back and forth, but it wasn't like one of those where we all have our little workstations. We're sending huge chunks of songs together. It was more like, oh, here's a riff or two I have. What do you think? Oh, here, I recorded this on my phone in a echoey room, if you can even tell what's going on, that kind of stuff. Right. So we're very much either, I don't want to say old school would be like saying we're making a conscious choice toward that, which we sort of are, but a lot of it's just sort of, this is the way I've always done it. I'm just going to hit record on my phone and just like, here, check this out. So we weren't doing, constructing the record remotely and then coming up together just to practice. We were just constructing it in person. Okay. Doing what we always done in person, staring each other in the face, throwing things against the wall, trying riffs, bringing it in that way. It just, because of the travel, that's what kind of, complicated matters. Sure. So it was like we had more time duration wise, but it, we did not at the same time. It was almost like, it was not rushed, but it was, oh crap, make it worth it your while when you're there. And, fortunately, as stressful as it is, we tend to work really well, or at least the result is well. I don't say we work well, but the result is good when we're super kind of back against the wall on things. Right. And it kind of distills down any sort of like, sort of hesitance in certain things. It's like, no, you got to do it now. So like, okay, and you kind of force you just kind of like get rid of all this chaff that you have in your head and just try to focus. So, we had a ton of time, but then we didn't because of other circumstances. So I don't know really what led us to, beyond what I discussed earlier with like making conscious sort of like little evolutionary changes in this, either the components of the songs or certain aspects of the songwriting. I really can't explain it. We didn't make a concerted effort to like change anything dramatically. Sure.
And now I know you're probably starting to see this. I'm starting to see it with the reviews that are starting to get out there. A lot of people are calling this like deathcore, which I think is just not right. I think that's.
I don't know who these people are or what they're. I mean, granted, they don't have to know or care about our personal music histories just to have that opinion. But I'm like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, and again, this is one opinion. I will say it's more catchy than some of the other stuff. I think it's some of the songs will play to people that like deathcore, I think. But to call I mean, it's still very traditional death metal in most of the parts. For you guys, when you see that and you see kind of a misclassification of what you're doing, do you look at that as hurtful to you because it's trying to classify you almost in a trendy thing instead of what you guys are?
Yeah, I would think it'd be more like you just said. I would be more annoyed because then that implies that we're like, oh, they're trying to jump on something to see what they can milk out of it, and it's like absolutely not the case. Like, I mean, you can't. I mean, I do, but you can't not pay attention to like other, whatever's going on in the other parts of the music world you're in. I know, like myself and a couple of the other guys, don't care about it at all. Don't pay attention to that stuff at all.
Sure.
I'm not saying it's an advisable position to take, but I'm just saying we just don't pay attention at all. I just don't care. I don't even pay attention to that stuff. I mean, it's more of like something I'll skim past in a news site or like maybe read it about it, but not retain any of it or care. It's just like, whatever else, what's going on, I guess. So it's not, none of us at any point in time made any effort to approach like, oh, we should really pay attention to this band, man. They've got a really good thing going. Let's try to jump on some of that. Absolutely not. I think maybe I'm being, maybe I'm being presumptuous about this, but it's almost like, I think a lot of those bands, maybe some of the deathcore bands that like people are like, oh, this sounds deathcore. Well, maybe they were influenced by some of the things we're doing. Yeah. And if they did that, it's associated with that band because if they have the higher profile than we do. And then, oh, well, Cattle is just trying to jump on that. Like, I don't think so. So regardless of what we listen to personally, it's I don't know. I think like you mentioned, like some of it's catchier, I guess you could say.
Sure.
But I don't know why that's any like trying to write the best songs you can with replay value and not changing your style, how that's somehow seen as like some sort of slight, like, oh, you're doing stuff that like people, there's replay value in. It's not just like a jumble of notes that don't mean anything. Oh, that's obviously selling out, but there is that happy medium between like bands that obviously are definitely trying to like pander to like the wider public appeal. Sure. And then others that are just like, oh, we, trying to do the best we can. And if it happens to be not latched onto or appreciated by whomever, that's not on us,
Right. Well, and it's so weird to try and pander this style of music for the bands that do that. It is such a weird thing because this is never, in a zillion years, you're never going to have Metallica success and Metallica fame doing this. This is meant for the people that don't like mass appeal, that like underground music. It's always weird to me when people they all of a sudden adjust and it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, yeah, I mean, there's a I don't want to say gatekeeping because that's a very, nowadays sort of term, but like, I don't know if you don't evolve some way with your music or you're trying to push yourself, whatever that means, whatever it means to your band. If you're not doing that in some way, then what's the point?
True.
It's like some bands may have like at the earlier part of their careers have some success or their biggest success. And then they spend the rest of it, trying to live up to whatever album they put out when they were 25. And they're now, my age, which is late 40s or whatever. They're trying to just do that over and over. And it's just like you're coasting for two plus decades,
Right.
We've, regardless of like, oh, this album was well reviewed or well received, we're still like, okay, cool. Well, let's still, keep certain elements, but let's continue to progress and learn from, and grow as musicians and not, just kind of lean back on that. Because otherwise you're just like, you might as well be doing, I mean, people don't do this much anymore, but like top 40 covers, and just kind of, and just lean back on that,
Right. Definitely. No, you're 100% right, man. Well, I'll tell you what, Josh, let's take a little break here and give people one of the tastes that you've given us of one of the catchier songs on the record. We Are Young, certainly brutal as hell, but it is a little bit, I know the first time I heard it, I had to double take. I was like, oh, this is a new wrinkle, so tell us a little bit about this song and this video to lead into this.
Well, for We Are Young, I mean, it is probably, I mean, the entire record is the most straightforward song, I think.
Sure.
So it's like it's almost like a little bit of elements of kind of maybe Harvest Floor era Cattle, style. So it's a little more rhythmically, it's more straightforward, just like 2 speeds, rip and halftime.
Right.
But it definitely is one of like the more straightforward structured songs. And when we were talking about like what to release first, because there's going to be there's like 5 singles on this record.
Okay.
So we have one actually coming out here and another one coming out in a few weeks with a video and everything. And then later on in the year, another song, another video, that kind of thing.
Cool.
But we were discussing We Are Young, and it's like, it's going to throw people because if they're expecting, 10 songs of just that straightforwardness, where I would see comments after that came out as a single, people are like, oh, thank God, there's not any of the melodic stuff. It's just all brutal. It's like, hold on, give me a minute, or give us a minute, So we kind of like was a little hesitant that it's like, well, we don't want it to misrepresent the entire record, but it's almost like, what? For people who, I don't want to say were naysaying, but had some sort of like, let me guess, they're going to have some huge big chorus section and it's going to be catchy. Like, no, let's just do a ripper right out of the gate.
Right.
To maybe people get like, oh, this is intriguing. Is this the whole record going to be like this? The answer is no. But if we were to release, say, the second song we did, Scourge of the Offspring, if we were to release that first, is the rest record would be like that? No. So we were at the point where it was like, well, let's just put out this brutal song and then see what happens. And the response was really good. And then after Scourge came out, which we were kind of like a little bit, they're like, oh, well, the people that wanted just a straight up pedal to the floor, brutal stuff, they're going to be not bummed out, but just kind of like, but the response to that song has been great, so I think all of us were kind of like a mixture of happy, surprised, and relieved.
Right.
It wasn't, people having, of course, there's people who are like, what's this, but
sure.
Whatever. So yeah, I think We Are Young was kind of all of us would say an interesting choice for a first song, but it makes all the sense in the world because it's kind of this lone wolf song out of everything. It's just this, kind of paint peeling ripper of a song. So we're like, why not?
Right. Well, let's give people a taste of it right now. This is We Are Young. It is Cattle Decapitation right here on CHRIS Akin Presents.
Since no one's really, or very few people are relatively interested in the CDs anymore. And, obviously cassettes are now just still a novelty, like,
right.
Oh, they did a cassette for this? Yeah. Whoa,
Right.
The vinyl is like this thing that people go to shows and maybe they won't even listen to the physical thing. They'll just like frame it on their wall and put the vinyl up just a little bit so they can see the cool colors or everything like that. But those things like sell just as much, if not probably, actually, no, I shouldn't say just as much, way more than CDs do now.
Sure.
So we just figured, we have tons of options for that. And, people always want to see when bands put out a new record, like, well, what colors the vinyl is going to be? And, how crazy can they make the sort of color combinations and the patterns and everything. So yeah, we're putting out a bunch of different versions. I mean, there's like US releases, there's the EU releases that have like all different colors and everything. So it's for collectors. If there's like some, we have some friends of the band who are pretty obsessive collectors for multiple bands, but us being one of them.
Sure.
And they'll go and buy like all versions of it.
Nice.
I'm like, I think each one of us maybe have one version of each, if that,
Okay.
But it's not like we're going like, oh, I have this purple swirl. Oh, this is amazing. It's more like, oh, cool, whereas other folks are just really dedicated, which we, of course, infinitely respect and love, but it's pretty crazy out there if you want to get into every different version
right.
of things. So it's, it's pretty nuts. So people can really go off the deep end if they want.
Absolutely. Do you think, and I'm making an assumption that could be very false, but do you think that death metal fans as a whole are much more likely to buy physical product than stream it? Because I just, every time I go to a death metal show, there's 100 guys that are holding an album, a disc, whatever. Where if I go to, I don't know, Seven Dust or something, it ain't the same. Do you find that death metal fans do still appreciate physical product more than
I think so.
Other kind?
I think there's such a rich and like kind of loving sentiment for the genre amongst the fans. It's not just like you can't be like a casual fan of it. I mean, right. Some people maybe do, but you don't just have like, oh, I have a couple death metal songs on my playlist next to whatever. It's like, if you're into it, you're into it. So right. I think, and they know how both historically and then, in the past several years, like how much it helps to support bands. Granted, if you're buying an actual album, there's the whole the sort of economics of like, sure. Where that money trickles to and how many, hands take it before the band does. But it, I mean, that's still support. So I think metal fans like, oh, we know, most of you guys are, have to work when you're not on tour or whatever it is, sure. It's like there's this element of kind of like,
it's like a community, really. It's
exactly
community.
It's a community sort of thing, and so they're more willing to like kind of contribute or support in that way. So yeah, I definitely think so. It's not just another song on a playlist. I mean, there's certain people, or not certain, but there's people, of course, have like these thousands and thousands of songs on a playlist, and that's how they consume their music, which is the reality of how sure. most young people especially do things. So we're going to see. We've known obviously the past 20 years by now. There's changes are happening. But there's going to be just more and more, especially with, our album's a viable sort of thing anymore. Because so many people just want, you're a song in a playlist, you're not this album. But I still think metal people really do appreciate the album sort of format and want to listen to something as a complete statement, right. Versus a skipping around from song to song. You're just, this song on a list,
Yeah, and I agree totally. And as somebody that listens to a lot of everything, I'm the same way. I can have a playlist with a bunch of onesie twosies of kind of, I'll call them pop metal bands, but but death metal is one of those. I think part of it is you got to be in the mood. If you're not in the mood to listen to death metal, then you're just not in the mood. And if you're in the mood, you just want to put something on and get pummeled for a half hour, 45 minutes or whatever it
is. Exactly. It's not something, if you have like I said, one or two death metal songs on a playlist, you're like, oh, is that Sulfur Aeon? Turn it up, or whatever. It's something you have to kind of like you're committing to.
Exactly. Well, dude, we're talking about touring, so let's talk about you guys touring. You're getting ready to go out. I'm assuming this is not the only tour of the year, but tell us about the tour that's coming up and what's going on for the rest of the year, and I'm assuming into next year.
Yeah, we have a tour coming up May 11th. We actually start it right before the record comes out. Begins in Santa Ana, California at the Observatory. And it runs for just a hair under a month, finishes actually on the 10th of June in LA. So we do the whole big circuit, beginning in Southern California. But it's, the full US, a couple dips into Canada. Of course, Canada gets it's just like, oh, we're in Canada. Oh, we're in Canada.
Right.
So Montreal, Toronto, and then Vancouver for this. But it's with Dark Funeral, 200 Stab Wounds, and Black Braid.
Okay, so nice.
Yeah, it's it's Decibel. Decibel's the sort of parent sponsor of that tour. So nice big venues and good production and everything like that. So people should come and check it out. Every band's like 200 Stab Wounds is kind of one of the leaders of the whole younger guys playing old school death metal kind of thing. And Black Braid is a kind of, I don't say new on the scene. They've probably been around a lot longer than that, but just a black metal band from upstate New York. And then Dark Funerals, of course, the legendary Dark Funeral. Sure. So full packed evening, no one has to like go sit at the bar for a band or like hang out in their car or anything. They can just check it out and enjoy it. And after that, we have a run that we're doing internationally that has not been announced yet. Okay. That's in September of this year for two few weeks. Okay. And then we have a headlining tour, which hasn't been announced yet, but I will tell you, it's November, December at the end of this year.
Okay.
Where we're taking out 3 other bands. We have a headlining set, so we'll have full production, headlining set length, which is like hour and 10, hour and 20 minutes, which is, you know, and then, it'll just be the full deal. So moving on into next year, we'll be probably another US run. I don't know if it'll be headlining or support, but we're trying to work on that. And then probably stuff in the EU early on in the year. We're still figuring all that out, and, you know, just little bits and pieces. So, I mean, plus, I mean, we got, you know, you have to think when you're releasing a record, you know, there's a ton of time related to the manufacturing of physical products. You have to figure in X amount of time,
right,
you know, for that to come out. So you have to, the unfortunate reality of things today is, oh, we just put out a record. Well, have you started thinking about the next one? You know,
right.
Which is like, ugh, another one of those, you know, kind of things. But, you know, we'll see what develops. You know, we're going to be working on stuff, whether in person or remotely, and, you know, working on it independently, and then come together and hopefully make some progress. So we're a bit busy.
Very good, man. Well, dude, obviously, you know, we're talking about it. The new album is called TERRASITE. It is fantastic. It is Cattle Decapitation. And Josh, where should we tell people to go online to keep up with you guys and tour dates and all that stuff?
Just our cattledecapitation.com, all our social media, you know, Facebook, Instagram. I think Travis, I think we have a Twitter. That's not bad. I don't know if we have a Twitter. We do. We have a Twitter. And then the news sites have been very good about, you know, picking up information about us, giving tour dates and all that. But yeah, our .com is pretty. It's pretty much just tour dates, maybe a little bit other information. But our social media, Facebook, Instagram, are all very active. And you know, if people want to get any sort of current tour, you know, or merch or any other information, anymerchstore.com is our merch site. So it's linked on all the socials. So they just pop on there if you're into getting merch or just want to check out the array of wearables.
There you go. Nice. Well, one more time, the album is called TERRASITE. It is Cattle Decapitation. And Josh, I thought we'd wrap this one up with Scourge of the Offspring, which is the current video as of this taping that is out. So why don't you tell us about this one to wrap it up?
Yeah, this song is kind of I think it's a key example of something we started to try to do about 10 years ago. You know, with our record that came out previous to Monolith and Humanity was Harvest Floor. And it's, you know, probably the nth degree of our sort of, so one of the fastest in the band that's the super like crazy, a million notes, super skronky and, you know, technical and just sort of like the wheel's going to fall off sort of sound.
Right.
After that, it wasn't a reaction to that, but it was sort of like, hey, let's just try to edit and make things a little more concise. And like, here's a song. Let's not go off on these detours that may be unnecessary musically. So I think that's the trajectory we started with and have been going at since Monolith and Humanity. Well, here we are, you know, 10 years after that record, 13 or 11 years after that record. And I think Scourge of the Offspring is like the sort of epitome of that strategy. You know, it's not there's not 50 different parts of the song. It's just only, you know, a handful of parts, but it's like, there's just how they build and the layering and just the vibe stuff. That's what kind of adds that depth. So you have, you know, a pretty chunky, heavy beginning and, you know, some little more mildly techy, you know, guitar stuff here and there on the verse. And then, you know, you have this chorus, which is like I mean, for me, what I'm playing on that, just all this layering. And then I have some effects, like almost a cello effect on the guitar. So you have this, like I said, like a soundtrack kind of quality to it. And then Travis does his, you know, his kind of signature sort of, people call it the goblin or the witch or whatever, you know, voice, but that's all over it. And you give him space so he can really stretch on that part. And that's what he did. So it seems people are really, you know, if you look at comments and hear people talking to us about it, they're just like, man, I just could listen to that song and especially that chorus like over and over and over. So I mean, yeah, thank you. That's what we're going for. Just something you can revisit and don't, like with other types of extreme metal, not just bring out just to go, wow, that's crazy. And then you don't remember it 2 seconds later. It's more about the velocity as opposed to the actual song. So, you know, I mean, yeah, like I said, we have a million songs that just rip at a million miles per hour, but this is one that's like a slight step back. It's heavy, it's chunky, but it has that chorus to it. So we just, you know, like I said, it's the fun of not endpoint, but just sort of evolved version of what we tried to do like 11 years ago.
Right on. Well, let's check it out right now. This is Scourge of the Offspring. It is Cattle Decapitation. And Josh Elmore, thanks so much for joining me here on CHRIS Akin Presents.
Absolutely.
All right.